Products War Podcast, Episode 7.
Welcome to the Products of War Podcast. This is David Carroll here with Tom Brune. We got a pretty exciting show for you today. We're going to be talking a little bit about from April 2003 till about summer 2003 and our experience with going into Iraq, as well as touch on some of the policy points that made our jobs less or more difficult as however we've seen them. So I guess we'll just go ahead and get started here, Tom.
All right, sounds good.
All right, so there's a guy named Paul Bremer. And Paul Bremer, Tom, what did he do before he came into our lives here?
Oh, I think he bounced around the State Department for a while and worked for Henry Kissinger for a period.
Always a good sign.
And then, yeah. And then, he was an ambassador to the Netherlands. It was about the late 80s, early 90s, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And then retired from public life and went to work for one of Kissinger's companies, and then came back to lead the wonderful Coalition Provisional Authority.
Paul Bremer went over to Iraq in the early days of Iraq, just shortly after the invasion, and ordered a couple really interesting points that affected combat soldiers' lives. So one was the Coalition Provisional Authority's Order Number 1, which was on March 16th, which pretty much eliminated the top 3 levels of all government. And then a few days later, on March 23rd, he issued CPA number 2. The lasting effects of that had a lot to do with kind of building the insurgency and things of that nature. But these things aren't created in a vacuum. So we'll discuss all of that as we go along. We'll talk about a little bit about General Sanchez and his idea to moving around coalition forces within Iraq during this same time. And then we'll talk about just the reinforcement of the ideas of commanding officers and how they approach the war. It was a pretty hands-off approach to being able to go through the war, so we'll discuss that a little bit. And then finally, we'll stop with money that was taken into Iraq. So it'll be an interesting episode. We're going to go through a really good book that me and Tom have both been reading, and that's Fiasco by Thomas E. Ricks. That's always. Have you had much time with it, Tom?
I just got it actually a couple days ago, so I've been kind of thumbing through the areas that pertain to what we're talking about today, and plan on getting through the rest of it here in the next weeks.
I went through about maybe 80 pages of it, and if you take a look at my book, man, it is just scribbled on all over the place. I mean, every page that you open up in there is new information that wasn't available to me at the time whenever I was fighting. So I think that's what's really interesting about going through some of the policy is that while we were on the ground and just trying to survive and trying to figure out how to get water, there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes that caused some of these, I wouldn't say problems, but just added to the elements of the war. So for me, it's really interesting to go through some of these, and I hope that all of our listeners enjoy it as well.
I felt through probably the entire time I was over there at any point, I was just kind of fucking winging it. Like, I really didn't fucking know. I mean, maybe other people thought they fucking knew or did know, or I don't know. I just kind of felt like I was trying to fucking get through everything the fucking day at a time, trying to figure out what the fuck was going on.
Yeah, and I think that as we're looking through policy, it looks like everybody else was doing the same thing.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, it's like fucking they were winging it too. They were just as fucking lost in the sauce as I was.
Yeah, because nobody had ever done it, right? I mean, nobody in our generation that was making decisions, either from the White House or from the ground in Iraq, had never done this. It's one of those whenever you don't know what it is until you go through it. So everybody's winging it. Everybody's trying to figure it out. And I think where a little bit of it got lost is just the understanding of Iraqi culture and the history. For me, I think that's where it kind of not got lost, but it definitely went sideways a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, how much training did you receive even on the fucking Middle Eastern culture prior to fucking going over there, or even while you were there?
The first time, absolutely none.
Yeah.
I mean, it was absolutely none. By my last time, they'd started to implement some classes and things of that nature, but it took a long time for us to figure out that we needed to learn how to speak the language.
Yeah, we figured out how to say fucking, maybe they taught us how to say stop and fucking, I don't know, Ogoof and fucking
yeah.
Ishta and fucking whatever else. That's about it.
Yeah, there wasn't much, right? And I don't think that a lot of the policy leaders understood that either. So
Yeah.
we'll get talking a little bit about Paul Bremer, but first let's start talking about just the Green Zone and the CPA. Right? You did a little bit of time in the Green Zone, correct?
We lived very near it. We lived at the Martyrs Monument, or also known as the Teardrop, there in Baghdad.
Yeah.
If anyone was there, they fucking running around the city, they know exactly where I'm talking about. But it's on the east side of the fucking river.
Okay.
They're right next to a couple miles from the Green Zone. It was it was two teardrop. It wasn't supposed to be, but it was like two big blue clamshells that were sitting up high on this platform.
So whenever you went into the Green Zone, though, how much different was the Green Zone than where you were fighting at?
Well, it looked a lot nicer. I mean, we didn't get to hang out there a lot of it. I mean, we'd run people in. So we were the brigade recon fucking troop. So then we'd escort the fucking colonel or the sergeant major patrol day, and then the colonel fucking sergeant major escort day.
Yeah.
So fucking what do they call the fucking personal security detail?
Yeah.
Did those, and then that's where we got to see all the fucking cool places. Because you take the colonel around and you go meet with other units and you just kind of bullshit around and fucking see what was going on in different areas.
Yeah.
But like I said, we didn't see, like, I was reading in the book there, and they're talking about bars and nightclubs and whatever else and all kinds of crazy shit. I don't remember any of that, but...
Yeah, I think that was more for the civilians, like, that are deep inside the Green Zone, you know? I don't know how big this area is, but I'm suspecting that it was smaller, because whenever I went into the Green Zone, I just went into the hospital and, you know, some of the other things that were admin-wise. We went into there, but we never went into where they hung out into, like, their MWR or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of the discontent comes from that the people that lived inside the Green Zone, though, never got out and understood what Iraq was. And so
I could definitely see that, because it sure as fuck wasn't Tahrir Square or anything.
The CPA lived right next to inside the deepest part of the Green Zone and never got to get outside and kind of understand what was going on in the population. As far as I can tell, the CPA meant well, but it was hampered by a lot of inexperience and unwillingness to manage expectations, because they had great big expectations, and they had this almost capitalism idea that if we get all of these people to work on these projects, we'll be able to go. But the CPA orders pretty much eliminated all of the people that had the knowledge to do those jobs.
Yeah, well, I also think a lot of their fucking decisions were based on the fact that prior to the war, they thought we were going to be just treated as liberators, and everyone was going to be willing to fucking work with us. At least now that Saddam's gone, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's where it stemmed from. But I mean, the first CPA order though was issued in March 16th, though, of 2003. I mean, I went in the 1st of March, so I mean that's quick.
Yeah,
that's not
they
even.
Weren't wasting any time. What was the first order?
So that was the one that eliminated the top 3 levels of all government. So that was CPA order number 1. And so what happens whenever you take the top 3 levels of the whole entire government out of a country that has a huge illiterate rate? So you take out all the people that know how to run and manage things and fire them, right? So I mean that in itself is going to create chaos, and it's hard to build upon chaos.
No, that was the first order. That was where they were moving all Ba'ath Party people,
correct,
right?
Yeah, so that was the de-Baathification. So it was the idea of it was to get rid of the Ba'ath Party members, which I agree with. I agree you got to get rid of some of them, and you got to knock them out and have a lot of those people be gone, you know, but it's just really tough to be able to try to say, I want to do this and then still run government.
Yeah, well, I mean, they had their golden boy in there they wanted to run the country. We talked about it before. And, I don't think he had any support among the previous government. So that's probably one of the bigger reasons why they would get rid of all the former government officials and everything else, to get his loyal people in there, you know, or get people that were fucking at least would work with him.
Yeah, but I don't think he didn't follow through though, right?
I don't think he had. I don't think he had near the support even among just the regular people, let alone fucking, you know, the fucking old Baptists or anybody else.
Yeah. I read somewhere that that he had some support within D.C., but it wasn't enough to get. He didn't have the people on the ground.
Yeah.
To actually do it. So I don't.
No one in country.
Yeah, no one in country. It said he could do all these big things, and then no idea. So. Yeah. I'd like to just briefly talk, though, a little bit about some of the things that came up while we're going into Iraq, right? Just some of the policy that was there, or just some of the ideas that were gone. And a lot of these ideas are taken from Fiasco, just what we went through, and then a book called it's Hard Lessons, the Iraq Reconstruction Experience. So there's a lot of things that kind of happened that behind the scenes to see what was going on. And one of the first ones that jumped out at me was April 8th, 2003. Colonel Alan King, the 3rd ID head of civil affairs, was told by Colonel John Sterling, 3rd ID chief of staff, that I just got off the phone with the chief of corps and there's no plans. And then Colonel King has 24 hours to come up with the reconstruction plan of Iraq. Like, I can't even believe that that's a fact. Like, how is that how we're doing this? We've been fighting wars for thousands of years, and we think that we can just wing it.
Well, it's like they had no plan post-invasion.
None.
Like to fucking rebuild. So then it's like, at that point, why don't you just leave?
Yeah.
It's not like I don't know, it's likely would be fucking any more fucked up, I wouldn't think. If we just went in there and fucking... You think Iraq would be in worse shape if we went in after the invasion and fucking just... fucking killed Saddam and just fucking rolled?
No
or
way.
Just fucked up the country?
No way.
Yeah, just like...
It would have been just the same. I mean, it's hard to tell, but I guarantee that this wouldn't have happened if we would have done that. Because on April 17th, President Bush signs Public Law 108-11, creating the Iraqi Relief and Reconstruction Fund. Guess how much money's in that fund? $2.4 billion. $2.4 billion. And on April 8th, it was already known that there's no plan for it. Like... I
just don't understand. Yeah, it just blows my mind that they would fucking make a plan to fucking invade that country and then just fucking leave it and then not even have a plan afterwards to fucking rebuild everything that's fucked up.
That's like going on vacation and being like, hey, I'm gonna go to vacation in Oregon. Okay, you get there, how are you gonna get and selling your truck and your tent when you get there, and then giving away all your money and be like, I'll just figure it out how to get home, I guess. So a series of
bad no plan
decisions.
For where you're going to stay or fucking how you're going to eat or any of that.
No, what was that documentary that you told me to watch the last time? It was like Thunder Run?
Thunder Run on Baghdad.
Thunder Run on Baghdad. And the clip that stood out the most to me is whenever people got there, American forces got there, and they said, where should we set up where should we set up shop? Like,
yeah.
I had no idea. So that's all in April. April 21st, Donald Rumsfeld. There's always been there's a whole huge story behind Donald Rumsfeld and the troop reduction and doing it with a smaller army. I mean, there's pages and pages of stuff to read about that, which is pretty interesting. And but he canceled on April 21st, he canceled the deployment of 50,000 additional troops on April 21st. I mean, we've barely been in there by now, so
well, they were cutting back huge amounts of troops from the initial plan too.
Yeah,
because I think the initial invasion was supposed to fucking have 1st Armored and fucking 1st Cav and fucking 4th ID in addition to fucking 3rd ID and whoever else fucking really rolled in there. Yeah,
it's supposed to be a lot, and that's what I was saying is that there's a huge backstory between Rumsfeld and all these troop reductions, and I think that's a show in itself. But as we're trying to just to move through some of these dates, we'll go May 1st, the mission accomplished, Bush's mission accomplished speech was given on the aircraft carrier.
Uh-huh.
So I read a little bit about this, and I think, is that something that you remember? Or, I mean, at least you remember seeing afterward, at least?
We were, like, just getting ready. I remember seeing it afterwards. We were getting ready to fucking deploy, either going to Kuwait or in Kuwait at that time, so we were busier. And
yeah, that's how I was too. I was moving around, but I think that once you've seen it, it's a iconic image that you don't forget. Bush standing on the aircraft carrier with the big mission complete out in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
What ocean was he in? He was off the coast of San Diego.
I assume, yeah, I assumed he was fucking a lot closer to theater than that. But
for whatever reason, in my mind,
that,
for the last fucking I don't know, 15 years, dude, I've been thinking that dude's in like the Persian Gulf, you know, like they're just fired rockets off of that boat, and now he's landing on it, you know.
That's what I assumed. They fucking held up a fucking F-18 to fucking that was going on mission, so the president could land.
Yeah, that's what I thought he was doing. No, he's in the fucking off the southern coast of San Diego. So, you know, it is what it is. But so that's just when I'm in country. I'm getting into country now. One of the things that I read in that Hard Lessons is that the May 2nd, the oil ministry opened. The author of it made a point to that. I'm not 100% sure why he made a point to it, but I made a note to it as well. And then on May 6th, the guy that had already been on the ground, there's this guy named Jay Gardner who was a lieutenant colonel. He'd already been on the ground trying to set up the CPA, and he'd been working behind the scenes for 18 months before then, trying to formulate a plan. And he had a pretty good plan of how to rebuild the Iraq. But then when Paul Bremer came in there, he kind of moved all them plans around a little bit on everybody. So he was told on May 6th that he would be replaced, and then I made a note that the Pogues were ready to go home on May 9th. Let me read that quote, dude. It's funny. It's funny. I laughed out loud whenever I read that, man. Let me go back to the book here real fast and take a look at it. It said, this is from Captain Leslie Kipling, the MP officer. She wrote to her boyfriend on May 9th, and it says, "My soldiers are starting to lose their positive attitudes and are constantly asking me when we will go home."
They got a long way to go since then.
On May 9th, constantly asking when they're going home. I just thought that was hilarious, man. So, but it's weird whenever soldiers go over to war and you think we're just in and out, man. We're in and out. The Pogues probably seen that, mission accomplished and was like, yo, president says we're done. Let's go. Let's turn this boat around.
Waiting that 100 hours of combat from fucking first Gulf War.
Yeah. I'm thinking they're going to go home and get their ticker day parade.
Since you brought up the Ministry of Oil, the Ministry of Oil was just down the road from the teardrop where we stayed. And then they got rocketed fucking one time. And the fucking transportation fucking piece for the rocket was a donkey cart that looked like a waterway.
Okay, yeah.
So basically there was a fucking multiple launch rocket system, homemade type, sitting on the back of that fucking donkey cart, and it fucking, the donkey's just walking and the rockets just fucking fire out. We could see it from the fucking compound.
Wow. And
they're firing over this fucking donkey, burning its ass, and fucking shooting rockets into the fucking Ministry of Oil.
What did that donkey do?
The donkey, he went nuts for a little bit. Then when the rockets started firing, he just went back to fucking kind of milling around like what he fucking was doing beforehand.
Dude, that's a fucking crazy way to just launch a fucking barrage. We need to hit this big area. Let's strap it to this fucking donkey and let it run around.
Yeah, it was like 4 or 6 missiles in that fucking thing. It was pretty wild.
Wow. Yeah, always impressive, man. How the way that they come up with some of those things, man. Always funny. So now we're talking again. May 12th, Paul Bremer arrives in Iraq. So this is May 12th, 2003 that we're talking about. And back at the House, the Undersecretary of Defense Douglas Faith stated to Congress that we are pursuing our goals with a 2-part determination: a commitment to stay and a commitment to leave. And that's a quote that came out of that Hard Lessons, and I was just confused by why somebody would state to Congress that we're winging it. Like we're leaving it open. We're leaving it open to interpretation for a little bit.
Yeah, it sounds like what he's trying to say is like we're going to stay until the job's done, but we're not going to be there forever. We're not going to get embroiled in it.
Yeah.
Well, because they got.
Go ahead.
I was going to say they got out really quick, after that fucking, 2000, 9, 10, 11. When did they finally fucking shut everything down there? 12?
Yeah, 12, I think. I mean, they're still like, I think that there's
Well, they went back, so it's probably another fucking
who knows how
kind of
many.
operation.
Yeah. So if we're putting things in a timeline, we're still at May 15th here, and May 15th is the Coalition Provisional Authority, which is pretty much the government of Iraq, has a request for 30,000 requests from payments from ex-soldiers. So that's on May 15th. May 16th, that's when Paul Bremer issues CPA order number 1. And immediately it takes 30 to 80,000 people unemployed, and like I said earlier, it takes out the top 3 levels of government. And a lot of the ministries are no longer to operate. So it's just adding a layer to the chaos, right? I mean, we can sit and Monday morning quarterback it and say whatever, it created this or it didn't create it. Either way, for me, it was another layer of things, because whenever I would drive around in Iraq all of my deployments, I guess, it just seemed like a lot of people were just hanging out and just bumming around,
Yeah. Now, the order number 1, did that eliminate the army, or was that later on?
That was later on. It'll come soon.
Okay.
So now it's just the levels of government, which again, right? I mean, if it's de-Baathification to get rid of those loyal to Saddam, I support it. But me personally, I think that it might have went a little too deep and left the ministries just incapable to do anything, which left the CPA to kind of, there's a lot of quotes that say that the CPA was trying to tape feathers together and hope for a duck. Right? Like because they had nobody to do anything. So
yeah.
So
you'd think a lot of those guys, they were quote unquote loyal to Saddam, but just to get that job. But also if they weren't, they were probably fucking tortured and killed too. So it's a lot of guys were just doing what they were doing, probably just to fucking live.
Yeah.
Especially just running their fucking ministries or fucking. You're just doing fucking like public works fucking.
At the same time, though, whenever the policymakers and the civilian policymakers were doing their things, you kind of think, I would want to at least assume that the military had some say-so in it. But at the time, man, we were just focused on the ports, right? We were just trying to get the equipment into us to fight wars. It seems like that we were just kind of hoping that the civilian side of it was taking care of things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That wasn't even a discussion of fucking what we had, No. Not even a little bit.
No, I had no idea. Like, I never even heard of the CPA until I started doing research. Right? Like, I knew that there was a place that we got money from, but I didn't know the backstory of that at all. So it was strange. Let's talk a little bit about how the CPA got its money, right? And we talked about this just briefly. And the CPA was under an executive order which permitted Paul Bremer to use $1.7 billion. And this money comes from multiple different places. It came from seized money that was assets that were in U.S. banks, and then money that was put into that was taken out of Iraqi banks as we got there. And then the other part was taken from this thing that was called the Development Fund for Iraq. So the CPA controls all the money. They get the money from banks in the United States, money from banks that were local that was taken in Iraq, and then the Developmental Fund of Iraq. And what their order is, it says, the resolution required that the DFI become the repository for Iraq's oil and gas revenues. 95% of the oil and gas revenue from Iraq went into DFI to reconstruct and repair Iraq infrastructure, and for the other purposes of benefiting the people of Iraq. So whenever I read that, I had to read that probably 15 different times to understand what the hell is going on here. Like, what happened there?
So basically, what it looks like is they're selling their oil and gas money, right? The DFI is the bank account that they're putting the money in, and they're supposed to use it just for basically infrastructure and repair of the country, and and then just the other 5% goes to paying people that got fucked up during fucking the 1990 invasion. So
when the UN Security Council passed Resolution 1483 and created the Developmental Fund of Iraq, a lot of money went into it, supposedly. right? So I'm going to go ahead and say that 95% of the oil and gas revenue from a country was going to be a little bit of change. And Tom, you was talking before the show. You was talking a little bit about this. Can you go ahead and read that?
Yeah, so I kind of looked into it a little bit more because when I first read that, I was kind of wondering who was managing that fucking DFI, because there's a lot of money going into that, and there's going to be a lot of people that want to get their fingers on it. But so I found so the resolution also created a international advisory and monitoring board that the UN, they were supposed to go through the UN, and that was through the U.S. and U.K. promised council members that the IAMB, the International Monitoring Board, would be the eyes and the ears of the international community. They're basically monitoring all the money that was in there. So procedural wrangling and U.S. manipulation delayed the oversight process for many months. And meanwhile, billions flowed into the DFI, and some of the council members grew irate at what they called a black hole of unaccountability. So then later, they did a fucking audit. I think it was 2004, and it was conducted by the Special Inspector General for Iraq Reconstruction, and they found that of the $23 billion that were in there, that $8.8 billion remained unaccounted for. So over a third of that money just fucking disappeared.
That is, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's just a huge amount of money that just fucking flew away.
Massive numbers. I mean, just massive numbers of. I don't even know what you call that, right? I mean, but again, we're looking at, if I'm looking at it from like my, I don't know, my there's evil in the world perspective. It looks like robbery. But who knows, man? There could be a reason why $8.8 billion is missing.
maybe a small portion of that, just didn't get fucking signed for. But it just fucking, yeah.
That's tough.
Just remember that. Think about that fucking number every time you took one of those fucking classes where fucking corruption and fucking fraud, waste, and abuse, and fucking all those bullshit ones where they were worried about you stealing fucking $14 worth of fucking batteries.
Yeah. Can't have too many batteries on you at one time. But a third of the money's gone.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean,
$8 billion.
So if you're listening and you want to do some more research, because me and Tom are just two guys that just interested in it and looking around. Again, that resolution is 1483. So take a look at it, make your own opinions, and then we'll move to Paul Bremer's the CPA order number 2, and this is the one that was that took out pretty much all the ministries. So just some of the numbers that I looked up real fast, and this is again from Fiasco, and it said that the armed forces, there's 385,000, the Ministry of Interior 285,000, and then the Presidential Security Forces was 50,000. So it took out all of these people and took them out of the workforce completely. So whenever you get rid of over 500,000 people in one shot, I don't understand how that they thought that this was a good idea. Even not Monday morning quarterbacking it, you would think that this would be something you're like, yo, hang on, let's stop for a second, because the Iraqi army, yes, you'd want to get rid of the ones that are Ba'athist, loyal Ba'athist members, but Joes, man, they could have been cleaning up stuff. At least, even if you keep 150,000 of them and no weapons and just have them go clean up the streets.
Hell, you could have used them for just fucking policing or fucking whoever knows what else,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just even if you're not even fucking using them for that, even if you just keep them fucking employed, then you're taking all the guys that are trained in the use of fucking firearms and fucking explosives and not making them fucking desperate and hungry.
Yeah. So here's a quote that said, this is from Cobra 2 by Michael Gordon. And I was just looking at this earlier today, and it said only some 8,000 of the 140,000 officers and NCOs were committed enough to Baptists to be disqualified. Is there a way that you can think that this was a good idea? Because I've been thinking about it for like the last week and a half, and I can't think of a way that this is a good idea.
No, I don't know. It's just a poor decision, man.
Really. Yeah, that's all you can say is that's a poor decision. And what the problem is that the CPA was a entity created in DC. So it's created there, all civilian ran, and whenever they made that order, that CENTCOM had no idea. CENTCOM had no idea that the whole entire Iraqi army was going to be disbanded and go home.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, that's piss poor partnership, man.
You're just fucking not telling fucking the left hand what the right hand's fucking doing. It's just fucking no one's fucking communicating between fucking branches. I don't know. Well, I think we'll see that again later on. The more we talk about this war, too.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just like you said, man, winging it. Everybody's winging it. No, no plan. So what we have to remember then is moving forward into Iraq and our part of the war is that these things affected the economy a great deal. So all of those little Haji shops that we bought shit from, those were, some of them were there, but some of them were just made out of desperation because people needed jobs and a million things were affected by that. So it's tough, and we have to remember that a lot of the institutions, such as the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Information, the Ministry of State of Military Affairs, the Iraqi Intelligence Services, the National Security Bureau, the Directorate of Military Intelligence, and the Emergency Forces were all gone. I mean, I get it. Like, if you're looking at, hey, what institutions don't you want to fight against? And you're the other side of the army, you're like, well, I don't want to fight against the Ministry of Defense or Information. I can see why you'd want to take out some of those institutions, at least at the top level, but to disband the whole entire thing seems way too deep.
Yeah, I don't know, because then you're working so much harder to rebuild everything if you fucking tear it down to the goddamn foundation,
Yeah.
As opposed to just fucking repaint the fucking wall.
Yeah, just change the sign, change their uniforms, give them a little pay raise, and call it a day.
But yeah, for the amount of money that they were fucking spending on this war, they could have paid all those fucking clowns.
Could have paid all those clowns.
Fucking tripled their pay, yeah.
Yeah, hey, you want to either go starve or get triple your money. Be loyal to this new color, this new signia.
Pretty much.
But that took it pretty deep, So whenever I was reading this and taking a look at it, I just thought of like how ignorant I was to a foreign culture, and I'm chalking it up to that we're just knuckle dragging idiots. For the most part, just as human beings who are just like, okay, this will work. Let's try this, and there's no real thought to it.
Seems like I just made a whole lot more work than it fucking needed to be.
Yeah, and that's coming up now. So we talked about Shalobi before, and as we said that. It could have been his influencing that got the de-Baathification done, so that way his people could be in charge of the security forces, but that never came through, and we'll have to look into that. We'll have to look into why that didn't happen, but as of right now, I don't know why that didn't happen. But Bob Woodward, in his State of Denial, he said that the Pentagon and Cheney were obviously promoting Shalobi. So he had some backing in there, but just not enough maybe. And So whenever that didn't come through and the security forces were gone, there was a major on the ground. And I just wrote him down as Major Madison, and this is from Fiasco. And he said that the idea of CPA number 2, he just wrote, "This will haunt us." And then yeah. So like he could see it coming at the time. And then Colonel King, he said that I don't know where Colonel King was at, but he just someone quoted in that Fiasco, and he said that the insurgency went crazy. May was a turning point, and that every moderate was now furious.
Yeah, so even people that weren't even, or they were borderline fucking one way or the other, considering being fucking part of the insurgency, they fucking started leaning towards it.
Yeah, you could have shaved off a little bit of that $8.8 billion and paid them. Yeah. Skim the skim a little bit and fucking kick it down. Yeah. So, at the end of May, man, there was demonstrations all over the place. There was people talking about that they will become suicide bombers and that they have no other way but to fight against tyranny. And, so it was bad. It was bad in the streets, and there was a lot of economic upheaval. And go ahead.
I'm sorry. That was about the time that I got into the fucking country there. So we got out of the middle of May, end of May.
Oh.
But I just don't remember it being all that bad. I thought, well, no, but there was a little bit. You're right. It was kind of a ramp up and then a ramp down, and it seemed like there was a fucking calm for a while, and then it fucking ramped back up.
Yeah, and that might have been these protests might have been isolated too around like the interior of the green zone or somewhere else too.
Yeah, that could have been too.
So
Maybe it just doesn't seem as bad since fucking who was old fucking what's his face, the cleric Al Sauter.
Oh yeah, Al
what
Sauter.
Was this little fucking army?
Yeah,
compared to his fucking uprising stuff, maybe it didn't seem that bad.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that's what's happening at this time. At this time, I don't think that the powers that were in charge are seeing how bad it could be. Right? I think that they're gauging it against a flawed scale that's just saying, oh, it's not that bad. Because even Paul Bremer, he said that after some of these protests, he said he will not be blackmailed with terrorism in order to pay some of the Iraqis. Well, come June 2nd, he modified that CPA order number 2 and started to pay some salaries and some pensions to the members of the disbanded army. And but by then, man, it's already so bad. General Petraeus is quoted as saying that tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of new enemies were created just by these actions. So I mean, just kicking the can, man. I mean, just kicking the hornet's nest and seeing what'll happen at some point.
And then, I think there was also a belief at the time too that there was just basically the army, the resistance, left over from the fucking initial invasion, the actual fighting.
Exactly.
The high intensity conflict.
Yeah. And matter of fact, man, I read some quotes about that not too long ago, and in May 19th, the Wolfowitz was on Capitol Hill saying that it was the remnants of the old regime and that the Iraqi insurgency lacked two classical ingredients for guerrilla war. That was public support and external support. So public support means the people, and external needs a nation outside of the area of fighting that can supply the enemy with arms. And,
Iran wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, or Syria, or anybody, like the neighbors of the countries, yes, would want to do that, So, and that's where we missed it, right? And even on June 19th, General Odierno, it said from Tikrit that it's not guerrilla warfare because it's not coordinated, right? So it's these ideas that were just missed. You can't blame nobody, right? I'm not trying to blame anybody like, hey, you messed up. But at the time, man, they just weren't seeing it, right? They just were not seeing that these little skirmishes and these little 2,000 or 3,000 people, once it gets to 2,000 or 3,000 people, they're going to go home and tell 4 or 5 of their buddies, and they're going to get them all in it. And now you got 10,000 people within minutes.
Well, not only that, then you got fucking heavy-handed reprisal too.
Exactly.
Like, people shooting from a fucking rooftop, and we'd return fire with machine guns into that fucking building. And, who knows how many of those rounds hit anybody else, and fucking you kill one guy or fucking somebody's kid, and then you got 2 more fucking guys that are willing to go up there with a fucking RPG and fucking shoot at you.
Exactly. And I think that this is what was talked about earlier, man, is that that it was a failure to identify what type of war we were fighting. Right? Because me and my fucking 21-year-old brain, I'm in fucking combat. Right? I mean, 2 rounds come at me, I'm unloading all over the place because, you just believe that that's the type of war you're in. And I'm not saying that if I would have known that we were in peacekeeping operations or understood Reconstruction any better, I would have acted any different. But I know for a fact that I didn't know that we were doing Reconstruction operations.
Or maybe it was the fact that they were so adamant that this wasn't going to be another Vietnam that they didn't want to even think of the idea that it was going to be an insurgency type war,
And I got a quote about Bremer talking to Jay Gardner, or I forget, it's on my paper somewhere, but Bremer was asked about Vietnam and just blew his fucking top. Just like this is not a new Vietnam.
Yeah, no, I read that. It was the guy was suggesting, he's like, these are some tactics and techniques that worked well in Vietnam, and he flipped out and ended the fucking meeting.
Yeah. Just didn't even want to hear Vietnam in the same sentence. Just so protective of I don't want to go down that road. So you got little protests coming up. You got things happening. It's pretty much a clusterfuck. Just a complete clusterfuck going into it. Then we get to mid-January or mid-June of the invasion, and we get a new CEO of 5 Corps. So we get General Sanchez, which is in control of Iraq, right? So that it seems odd that we would start the invasion in April, May, June, and be changing over the bosses. Right? Doesn't that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Again, this is another thing, just like them CPA orders that I'm like, why in the fuck would this be? How the fuck is this the idea?
I mean, maybe there's something we don't know about the guy that he took over previously on Fifth Corps is just fucking, maybe he had to go.
Yeah, maybe he just had to go. Yeah, could have been. You know, there's so many ins and outs of this story. Dude, I mean, literally, you can take a page of that fiasco and look at it and then start tracking back what happened and what made this do it. And, I mean, before you know it, you're down the rabbit hole so far, it's pages and pages of notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... But Sanchez was promoted, and Sanchez has got a little bit of a funny story. He came from poverty, and then he made it to you said that he was the youngest lieutenant general?
Yeah, I think that's what I read there in the fiasco. It said he was the most junior lieutenant general in the Army at the time.
Yeah, so he got promoted.
Or one of them.
He got promoted up, and what I read earlier, it said that he was in charge of somewhere between 18 and 20,000 soldiers, and then when he got promoted to Fifth Corps, he was now in charge of 180,000 people in multinational forces. Right, so that's a pretty big.
That's a big jump.
A big jump. That's a big jump. You know, and now you're in the military side of things, just trying to keep security and trying to keep the ports open, and you got bad decisions being made by civilians around you. You know, so not a good look on nobody's part. By June 18th, they said that General Petraeus in the 4th ID, General Petraeus in the 101st, and General Odierno in 4th ID are getting pretty pissed off at the CPA just for trying to get money, trying to get things going and get things moving. So, and they're having a difficult time about police forces and everything else, and the directives keep, what the uniform is going to be, and they're not bringing the equipment that they fucking need, and they're not supplying them with vests and fucking weapons and all that kind of shit. Yeah, I read a quote earlier, and it said that that there was a general that tried to get some equipment, and they told him, "Oh, we'll get it to you in January, February, March, April." It just kept moving down to try to get the IPs any bit of equipment.
Yeah, no, he wasn't getting the same one. He wasn't getting anything, and then he basically went to the press and talked about it, and then within the next day or two, he fucking had what he was asking for. I don't know. I just don't think it was. They talk about the insurgency not being fucking coordinated, but I don't think we were that fucking coordinated among the fucking units over there.
Oh, hell no.
I think there was a lot of fucking just separate commands, basically colonels and fucking below fucking running around doing what they were fucking doing.
Tell that story about the artillery commander sitting next to the other guy that's trying to win hearts and minds.
What are you reading there? It was Colonel Hogg was one of the battalion commanders, and then there was another another light colonel that had an adjacent sector to his, and he was basically, Colonel Hogg was firing H&I fires on supposed mortar firing points for the enemy nightly, and then in a month, I think he went through 160 rounds of 155 and 40 rounds of 120, firing in the city, and then there was a guy. Across the way, he was in his sector. He was over there doing public affairs fucking stuff, painting schoolhouses and all that fucking other stuff. And the other guy's over there lobbing fucking artillery into the fucking sector.
Just so much.
I don't think they got along too well.
No, I wouldn't think so. And that was something that I'd read about Sanchez. Is that Sanchez was over his head. I think we can agree that he was a little bit over his head. So he let his commanders kind of feel out the areas, right? Which really is the best approach, because if you're fighting a war like that, the places that are peaceful, you don't need to be doing that. But the places that are hostile, you got to use some force.
Absolutely. But then, so I don't know that he's given out the fucking, like, a good commander's intent. You know what I mean? To fucking, if you're taking that different of a fucking approach on a sector, that I can't imagine they're that much fucking different. I don't know. Maybe they are, but
yeah. Well, one of the things that was in that fiasco is that there was no unity of command, and that there was very little strategic or political thought coming out of Sanchez's office. So I think that you're spot on. Is because did you know your commander's intent at all? Your first deployment?
No. It's fucking, like I said, we were just fucking. It was presence patrols and fucking personal security detail, basically.
Yeah, that's all I did too. So we did that, and then we ran with our supply chain. Like if we had to go get 2 or 3 water buffaloes filled up, or we're picking up whatever the fuck we're picking up, we'd run down there and run supply, and then presence patrols, and that's what we did. So I mean, I don't think I even heard commander's intent until my second or third deployment. Like I never even heard like the briefing started with, "Here's your commander's intent." I'm like, "What the fuck are we talking about?" Oh, okay. Oh, that's nice to know what we're supposed to be doing. But then, dude, that like commander's intent. How many times did you go into a briefing towards the end of your career and your commander's intent is to disrupt and engage the enemy or some generic bullshit?
Yeah, most of the time that's what it was.
Yeah,
it's plausible deniability.
yeah, I told him what to be doing. So
yeah.
And then like I think that just the lack of cultural awareness and the lack of just how we as Americans viewed the Middle East and things of that nature is hard, and to put people that don't know those surroundings and know those situations is tough. And why I say that is because in Fiasco it said that General Sanchez went into the General Council meetings in the Green Zone armed and gave off the impression that he didn't trust the Iraqis.
Yeah, and then I'm sure he had a fucking awesome fucking security fucking team with him.
Dude,
there's no reason for him to carry a fucking pistol.
No. So I mean, it's just I think we all made a lot of those mistakes of just not, like, hey, let us help you. Right there for a long time, it was just more of a we're going to dominate you instead. To get in and out early though. I mean, and again, I'm not trying to Monday morning quarterback it, but to get in and out, you have to rely on those people, and we missed that. We missed that mark by a long shot on that in the first couple months.
Yeah, no, it seems that way. Just fucking, like I said, it was the rebuilding fucking process. We wanted to fucking do it the hard fucking long way, as opposed to, I don't know, fucking
keeping it intact,
try to fix it up.
Bit.
Yeah.
Dr. Paul Wolfowitz was the Deputy Secretary of Defense from March 2001 until May 2005. And let me get back to my notes here. And it said in July, Paul Wolfowitz went to lunch, and he had lunch with Sanchez and Odierno and Petraeus and a lot of the key figures. And he was in the Green Zone, and it for whatever reason, what's his name? The author of this book here, Thomas Ricks. He points out a lot of times that the lunch had white tablecloths and was what was served there. There was a buffet of this and fresh vegetables, and talks about the Green Zone in July of 2003 is this great place. Like it's that idea of this, the fortress mentality. As all these people in the Green Zone keep telling people up the chain of command that everything's great. We're doing the right thing, boss. Out in the street, it's going to shit.
Yeah, everything's going good, guy. If that's the fucking information he's getting from his subordinates, either, and he's expecting the fucking truth.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of people played parts of that, because for somebody to make that decision, right, for a division commander to make a decision to say, no, we're mopping it up, that means that COs, company size level COs are just telling them that. You would assume that that's the case anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't want,
yeah.
So very strange, man. I mean, just a lot of things just going on at one time. And we talked a little bit about the revolving door of Paul Bremer, kind of in and out of government, and then into the private sector, and then back into government, and things of that nature. And whenever we were prepping for the showtime, you said something about General Odierno.
Just recently after he retired. Yeah, he's appointed to the board of directors for Oshkosh, which makes, for those you don't know, they make MRAPs, the mine-resistant fucking armored vehicles, and then HEMTs and other fucking military vehicles. So I wonder how he got that job.
Yeah. There's a lot of wondering in this whole story, right? Like, as I'm going through, we've only went through about 4 months. And to all the listeners, this is the briefest touch on anything that's going on that you can even have, right? We're just literally touching the wave tops here, and just barely getting into any of this. And there's just a lot of things going on. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, everything. Every interaction fucking affects the way that that the Iraqi population fucking sees the U.S. Army at that point, and they're probably the more that we're out there, they're seeing them as an invading army or an occupying force, and as opposed to a liberating force. Probably immediately after when Saddam was fucking removed.
Dude, I remember going through towns in northern Baghdad and Balad and Bakuba early in the deployments, man. I mean, early, into May almost maybe, and going through those little towns and the whole streets being full of people waving and smiling and throwing us water and sodas and like literally being liberators. Like we had that experience numerous times, But then shortly after the IEDs and RPGs started, all that stopped. Yeah. And I mean, that's what comes first, though, right? The chicken or the egg? Did that start and then we started being heavy-handed, or were we heavy-handed and then that started?
Or is it just the continued presence? Because we were just doing heavy amounts of just presence patrols, 2-3 times a day, just going out, basically looking for fucking problems, talking to people who talk to us, or just fucking, you're fucking walking through fucking cities and neighborhoods and stuff, and it just gives that fucking feeling that you're there to fucking occupy and oppress that fucking place.
Yeah. Well, and you did it on the ground, right? So I did all my presence patrol, my first deployment, on a tank. Right? There's no way, no matter what you do to that fucking tank, you're not making it look friendly. It's just impossible.
No. And then every time that fucking tank goes through a fucking neighborhood, it's ripping down fucking half the power lines to the fucking people's fucking houses.
Oh yeah. So every time it goes down, it's ripping down those. Every turn that I'm making, it's tearing up a street. It's tearing up the sidewalk. It's tearing up everything. It's tearing up the road as I'm going down the road.
Yeah, there's something that's not going to get fucking replaced because there's no fucking Department of Transportation to fucking do it.
There's no ministries to fix it. So
shoot yourself in the foot is what you're fucking doing.
That's what it seems like, man. And it just seems like shooting ourselves in the foot, and I don't know, man. Just looking at things in hindsight, man, and being able to look at it backward and start to research what happened and what was going on and some of the policies that were made, man, is just like I texted you the other day and I was like, my mind is blown. Like I can't do no more, man. I can't figure it out anymore.
Decisions that fucking it just affects all that stuff so much, and you just have no idea what the consequences is going to be once the fucking decision's made or once that action's fucking taken. And especially, like I said, we talked about earlier, just fucking not knowing what the fuck you're doing.
Something as simple as that. Simple as that, man. Joe's not knowing what the fuck you're doing. Well, I mean, that literally fuck up the whole entire operation. But then,
absolutely.
But then, it can get blamed on the soldier. Oh, the soldiers didn't know what they were doing. They should have done this. They should have done that. Well, fuck, man. I get my orders from you guys. We get the orders from the civilian side. Tell us what the fuck we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, so they come down and tell you to shoot every uniform. If they're wearing black and they have a green fucking scarf, they're fucking enemy. They get shot on sight.
Well, I mean, how many donkeys carrying fucking trailers got shot after them fucking the Ministry of Oil got rocketed? Every donkey within fucking 10 blocks probably got smoked the next day. So
they fucking and shit like we got told that they were sneaking fucking weapons into the city in coffins on top of fucking vehicles. And they said you had to fucking search those fucking coffins.
Oh, fuck.
Like, no, not one time did I fucking do that.
No.
But just fucking, I'm sure some of them fucking did.
Oh, I guarantee somebody did.
Somebody did.
Guarantee somebody did.
And how fucking, you do that to that fucking family?
Oh.
No wonder they're going to fucking set fucking rockets off.
Yeah.
After that.
And I think that comes back to that lack of cultural awareness, man. Or not even cultural awareness, but just mission accomplishment knowledge, just knowledge of here's how we're going to win the war. Because when I was there, man, we're going to win the war by big bullets and aggressiveness.
I don't think the Army's a fucking poor tool for fucking nation building.
Oh, dude, horrible.
When it comes down to it.
Horrible.
Yeah, it's like trying to cut a board with a hammer. It just
Yeah.
doesn't fuck. You can get it done. You can break that board, but it ain't gonna work fucking well.
No, no, it ain't gonna work
No.
well at all. It's not gonna match up to anything else.
No.
I look at it as a lot of things were made by a lot of people way higher than me. I was just a kid along for the ride, man. And, the ride was hella fun. I enjoyed it, but I'd like to know who built the rides now. Like I don't go to like the little county fairs and ride them fucking roller coasters no more like I used to when I was a kid.
Yeah. Take a good look at that guy fucking running the goddamn fucking ride there.
Yeah, and I never thought about taking a good look at the people that were instructing the ride that I was on over there in Iraq. But now that I'm off the ride, I can take a look at it, and it just a lack of training, man. Just a lack of awareness, a lack of a lot of things caused it to be longer than it could have been. Like you said in the beginning, man. If we would have just left some of that intact and threw money at them, I think it would have been different, but again, who knows? We'll never know.
No, not even a little bit. I mean, I don't know. It's just fucking. I'd almost say you'd better off. You just went in there, went to Baghdad, fucked some shit up, said, "Start listening to us, and we'll be fucking back," and then just fucking rolled the fuck back out.
Yeah.
And then just said, "Fuck it."
Yeah.
Maybe Saddam would have been more like fucking Gaddafi and fucking not a problem until we decided to kill him.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
that's a whole nother story.
I think that was one of the things, though, that like just the playing with the UN inspectors that got us over there a little bit. Like we'd been batting him around and just wasn't going. But I don't know, man. Again, every time that there's a decision made during this conflict, there's 500 ways to look at it. And it just seems like it's just this layer cake, man, of bad decisions and shit intel.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
that's just any fucking people who try to fucking get their fucking hands into that kind of fucking stuff. It's just international fucking relations and politics and fucking war and
that's a crazy gig, man. I mean, for that to be your job, man. That's a different beast there. You want to call it?
Yeah, that seems pretty good.
We'll pick up in probably July, August, the next time that we're back. And for Tom and Dave, this has been a Products of War podcast. Oh, hang on, I forgot to tell you guys. Hey, check out our YouTube site. You're probably watching this on YouTube. Like it, subscribe. If we suck, let us know why we suck. We're trying to get it figured out here. We're on episode 7. We got a website up. We're trying to figure out all of the things to do with the website. We don't know, man. Me and Tom aren't the most tech savvy type of dudes over here. so
we know about as much fucking what we're doing on the website as we did when fucking 03 in fucking Baghdad.
yeah. It'll take some hindsight to figure out how we fucked this up, but I'm sure we are.
Speaking of not knowing what the fuck I'm doing, I also got some beer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but just on the whole theme of fucking not knowing what the fuck you're doing. A batch I'm making right now, so here in about 2 weeks I should have something that may be worth drinking or maybe not worth fucking feeding pigs and just fucking taking a shot in the dark and fucking trying.
Hey, a lot of times that works though, man. I mean, you never get anywhere if you don't take that shot in the dark. So
pretty much.
So we'll get it figured out. Again, if you got any comments for us, you can go to productsofwar.com, leave us a comment in the comment section, like, subscribe, check us out, and I think that's it for Products of War podcast. This is Tom and Dave, out.
said, making some